Alright, all. So, over this semester, we've been talking a lot about animation. We've talked about traditional, drawing animation, 12 principles of animation. We've talked about alternative forms of animation like rotoscoping, and we just finished up with stop motion, which doesn't even involve any drawing at all, really. But what we're going to be talking about today is sound and sound effects. And by extension of that, also music. Okay. So animation really is a multimedia piece of art. Okay. Music helps to set things like the mood and the tone of an animation. Sound, like sound effects, really help to sell animation. So, for instance, here, this is a Peppa Pig. I have to keep the audio on. So the cartoon is, the animals here, the pigs, they're going to jump into the water, right? And there's going to be a little bit of animation of the splash, but what's really going to sell the animation, so to speak, or what makes it seem more realistic, is the sound effect that happens when they hit the water. So I'll pump up the volume a little bit. You may want to do that too on your end, but just try to listen, okay?
Good. Now we can go in the water.
All right, so, I'm going to do that one more time.
Go in the water.
In the water. So the animation of them getting in the water, you can kind of see it. There's kind of, you could do this with like an opacity, perhaps, in a program like Adobe Animate or Tahoma. Not sure how you would draw that frame by frame, but what really, there's a little bit of secondary action when, like, the little pig, I don't know Peppa Pig, so I don't know all the characters, but, like, there's, like, a little splash there, right? But what really sold the action was that splash sound, right? So, sound effects in music can really help set the tone of your piece. Sound can even be really useful for, selling actions that you don't even have to animate. So after all of this time, you guys know better than anyone, except other professional animators, that animation takes a long time. And some things are a lot more difficult to animate than others, okay? And so sometimes rather than animating something, if it happens off screen, or it's somewhere the viewers of the animation can't see it, rather than having to animate it, we can sell the action with sound or a sound effect. So I'm going to show you guys an example. Here's Wile E. Coyote. You could probably guess what's going to happen. So Wile E. Coyote's going to fall, and he's going to hit the ground. Except we never actually see Wile E. Coyote hit the ground. Watch what happens. Okay. Let's do that again. Okay, so what happened there? Well, Wile E. Coyote falls. He gets smaller, right? Now, we can assume that Wile E. Coyote falling off of a cliff is hitting the ground, right? We don't know that. Maybe Wile E. Coyote can fly. I don't know, but we're assuming he's like any human and he just falls, with gravity. And animating him hitting the ground would be very difficult. Not impossible, but possibly a little too gruesome for a Saturday morning cartoon. Also just complicated. So rather than do any of that, how about we just sell it with a sound effect? That way, you don't really have to animate much. Now, they animated a little bit of, dust kicking up, a little cloud of effect, but otherwise, that it wasn't much to it, right? So music and sound effects can be very helpful to us in animation. So today's going to be about where can we find music and sound effects, and how can we edit music and sound effects, okay? Then later on, we're going to learn how to apply voice to an animation. In other words, how can we use how can we draw a character's lips in a way that it makes it sound like they are speaking correctly?